Hey guys, Brian with VetteSource checking in today. We got a nice sunny day. We're finally getting into our May weather here in southeast Texas. Lots of sun, lots of heat coming on. We're still getting some breeze, so that's good. But I figure in a couple weeks we'll be back in our sweltering above 90s temperature, which is just perfect for us. So I figured I'd make another quick video here. Today I'm going to delve into a little bit about jumping back into our 88 Formula 350 yellow gold car. I'm going to show you guys a little bit about these GM headlight motors of the 80s and 90s. GM was one of the few manufacturers that embraced pop-up headlights a lot back then, and they like to use them a heck of a lot. So the same basic design was used for a lot of these motors. And for those of you not knowing, this is our 88 Formula 350 car, 1988 I should say, that we've had for a while here at VetteSource. And we work on it when we have time and see what we want to do with it. This was a car we recovered. It actually had a small smoldering fire under the hood because the smog pump locked up and they kept driving it. So it did some damage to certain components that we're still kind of tinkering with. You can see some melt damage there and even here on these corners. So things that we're going to get to and fix eventually. It still runs and drives really well, but we don't really take it too far just yet. We're still kind of playing, tinkering with it when we've got the time in the middle of all the other stuff we're doing. So, but today this car has some of the similar problems that all the other cars have, is that the headlight motors, which is they're actually right here on the assembly, are not lifting the headlights into place like they're supposed to. And coincidentally, the 91 Formula 350 over there has the same issue. Now, all these headlight motors amongst all the GM cars are basically the same type of motor. Now, a trick that people don't know works is if you turn this, well, if it worked, it might. Turning this manually will actually raise and lower the headlight assembly. So you can do that in a pinch if you're stuck somewhere. Oh yeah, there we go. And you need to get the headlight assembly up. You can actually do this by hand. It's kind of cumbersome, but you can raise the headlight assembly. And there it goes. Now, this is not something you want to do all the time. And of course, people get confused over what actually goes wrong with these headlight assemblies. So what I'm going to do is take the headlight motor off of the assembly and show you guys what's involved in removing it. It's literally 3 10mm bolts on the side here. There's 1, 2, 3. There's 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 T15 hex bolts. This bezel comes out, and there's one more retaining bolt right down underneath that arm in there. You can't quite see. Now on this one, I'll go ahead and take this turn signal marker out so I can get to it. But let me go ahead and take the headlight motor out so I can show you guys what's going on and what fails on these motors, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, I am back, and we've got our headlight motor removed from the car. You can see here that was basically 3 small bolts, 1, 2, 3, with the T15 bolts around the bezel there, and then 1 retainer bolt on the headlight motor itself. So really wasn't too difficult to get out, but this is going to be the interesting thing that I'll show you. So this right here, this headlight motor served as a basic design for most headlight motors of GM vehicles from the 80s and 90s. The Corvettes had a plastic housing motor that I detailed in another video that's up above my head right now that I talked about and showed you guys how it works. This would have been the second design motor that came out that was supposedly a little more efficient, and it's not a bad motor. It's got less moving parts, so it's actually a little bit easier to play with. What you can see here is the electrical wires going right here to the motor part here with a worm drive on the end of it, and then it spins the gears on this side and spins over here. So I don't know if I can show you real quick. My son's in my way here, but you can see it moves pretty slow, but that's how it spins it. So what I'm going to show you is how and why these start to fail. Now, interestingly enough, this right here is going to be the entire culprit. Let me show you what happens, or how this fits in here. So let's go in. We're going to take our cover off. I've already loosened my bolts up here. These are just a 1/4 inch bolts. usually are not too tight because this is kind of a pot metal type construction, so they're not going to be in there super duper torque on those. We pull our cover off, and if we look in here, the first thing you notice is there seems to be a bunch of powder or residue inside of this thing. That powder or residue is one of these pellets. These pellets are made out of nylon, okay? And what happens over the years is they disintegrate and they turn into this dust, and they just basically work their way around everything. So when we push through on the other side, get my light there. See if I can get this to come out. There we go. Here comes our gear. This is our main driven gear right here. Okay, there's the worm gear there, and you can see there's more of that stuff on that gear itself. Of course, this is our shaft here. We push back on this, and you can see there's nothing inside of here. This should be the pellets. Now let me show you how the pellets go in here. The pellets actually sit in these little corners right here. There's 3 of them, and what they do is they serve as a push mechanism to turn the headlight gear once the drive gear is spinning it. So see, you go back in here. Let's see if I can get them to align correctly. Probably not, but that's where they sit, right inside that little area there. So over the years, what happens is they turn to dust. They just disintegrate and turn to dust, and then your headlight motors won't work, and then they're flopping around everywhere and bouncing back and forth, so these won't hold them. So what we're going to do real quick, you see all this nylon material in here that's disintegrated. We're going to go ahead and clean this thing all up, and I'm going to show you guys how to put it back in there, and then we're going to reinstall this back in and see how it works. So give me a few minutes and I'll be right back, and I'll show you what I got for you. Hang loose. Okay, we are back with our cleaned up headlight motor assembly and all of our nylon shavings removed from the housing. You can see we've got everything cleaned up as well. Our gear is cleaned and ready to install. Now again, what we're talking about, basic 3 little pieces that go on here. And I'll see if I can show you guys how I do this while I'm putting it together. So these 3 nylon bushings are going to be put here onto this. It's easier to put them on this side than it is the other. And we'll slip them on there. Make sure they're clean as well. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we find our cutouts there. See those circular? Almost reminds me of the way a rotary engine is set up. And we're going to set that down on there. Try to find our spaces. If we can get there. There we go. And we're in. Okay. Now, we need to put one of our washers back inside of here. Like so. We're going to set this motor, or this gear, back in the housing. And then we're going to come over here to our bag of goodies, hardware that we took off. Put our other 2 shims back on this motor assembly. Put our cover back on it. If I can get the gasket to sit straight. Here, we'll just do it this way. And go to town. And we've got 1 bolt there. And we've got 1 bolt here. And where did my 3rd bolt go? Well, of course I lost my 3rd bolt. There we go. There's our 3rd bolt. So, got that back in there. These take a very light touch. They do not need to be torqued down extra heavy duty. We'll put that there. Tighten this down. This is one of the few operations I can do one-handed, so you guys can actually see what I'm doing here. Putting that one. Of course, I'm still cheaply just using my smartphone for these videos, but whatever works, works. So, get that down. And all you really want to do, guys, is snug these down. If you over-torque them, you may run the risk of cracking the body, the housing of the headlight or the headlight motor itself. You don't want to do that. So that creates more problems because every time it moves, it's gonna flex. So we got snug, and we got snug. Okay, so we're back together again. Headlight motor's here. I'm gonna go ahead and hook it up to the harness in a second. Let me see, I might be able to, where's my harness? There it is. There's my harness right there. Let's see if I can get this hooked up. And I'll show you how this spins in real time here. Let me hook up my battery over here. Got my flashlight, not flashlight, sorry. My wrench. Walk around the other side. And we're going to go ahead and hook in our battery cable. And if you'll notice, I ended up doing the passenger side first, simply because that was a little bit easier to get to. A couple things I had to do to get underneath. There's that motor spinning. That one should not be spinning that long after it's up and down, but that's just the way it goes. So battery's connected. Let's come over here. We'll go ahead and hit that headlight switch. And there it was spinning right there. I couldn't really get back here fast enough, but you see it spun and did what it needs to. So we know that it's working. So from here we can see yep, there we go. So we're ready to reinstall. I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall this in a second, and I'll show you guys our finished product. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. We got our headlight motor installed in place here in the closed position, and you can see basically, like I was telling you or showing you while it was out there, those 3 bolts right there, and our actuator arm is hooked up, connected. So let's go ahead and do a quick function check, make sure this thing works. Shouldn't be too much of a stressful problem because these are fairly, like I was showing you, pretty simple. Unless I manage to do something catastrophically wrong, it should work for us. So I'm going to sit here, put the phone over here so you can see, and see if I can find my light switch with my fingers. There we go. Now you see that one's still running, so that means, see how it's still spinning? So I do need to go ahead and pull that one out anyway and rebuild it because that's not correct. But we'll go down. There we go. That's what we were looking for. So I'm going to finish buttoning this back up. For purpose's sake of not boring you guys to tears, I'm not going to take out the driver's side and walk you through the whole process because it's basically a mirror image of the other one. So let me go ahead and get the bezel and parking light back in there assembly, and I'll show you how that goes in, and we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we're back with everything buttoned back up, our bezel and turn signal and headlight motor installed. So you can see this is what the headlight will look like in the up position, of course, with our headlight assembly here. And there's one more look at that manual knob, and you can kind of see in here, see if I can get in there, see that brass swing arm is up against the stop right there. So if I turn this and you watch, see how that moved back from that position? So all that's doing is lowering the headlight assembly manually. So if you're stuck somewhere and your headlights won't come up and you happen to have a 3rd gen Firebird, 3rd gen Firebird, this is what you can do to alleviate the problem to get that back in there. But interesting, yeah, as it comes back down. So that's how we do that, guys, and we're pretty much buttoned up with this side for the day. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks again for the support and checking in. If you got any comments you'd like to make or give me a like on the video, that'd be cool too. Keep making these as I do little projects and adjustments along with the other parts that I list that I have for sale in the business, just to kind of show you guys the background of just not selling parts, but this is part of a lifestyle I do as well also. So thanks again, and I'll catch up with you guys next time.